I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not wander in darkness but will have the light of life. You bear witness to yourself. My testimony is not true. Even though I bear witness to myself, my testimony is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you cannot say where I came from. You are God's. Delving into the depths of the phrase, you are God's, we discover its striking resonance with Jungian psychology. Here, the self embodies the integration of both conscious and unconscious aspects, revealing the divine archetype within. Shadow work, a concept by Carl Jung, helps integrate the repressed divine aspects of the self, fostering personal growth. In John chapter 10 verse 34, Jesus responds to accusations of blasphemy from the Pharisees, who were incensed by his claim to be the Son of God. When Jesus declares, "You are God's," he directly references Psalm chapter 82 verse 6. Jesus points out that the scriptures themselves reflect a divine principle within human nature, something the Pharisees should have recognized if they truly understood God's message. The verse in John chapter 10 verse 34, where Jesus says, "You are God's," is a direct reference to Psalm chapter 82 verse 6. I said, "You are God's, sons of the Most High, all of you." This phrase serves as both a bridge and a challenge in Jesus' discussion with the Pharisees, prompting them to re-examine their understanding of divinity and authority. Psalm chapter 82 depicts God presiding in a court among divine beings, a scene common in ancient Near Eastern texts. God rebukes these beings, often understood as judges, rulers, or even heavenly powers, for their failure to uphold justice and righteousness. He declares them gods because they are endowed with divine responsibility, but due to their shortcomings, God states that they will die like men. Divinity here is less about inherent godhood, and more about the divine authority bestowed upon those who serve justice and truth. When Jesus refers to this verse, he asserts that the scriptures themselves acknowledge a divine quality within humanity. This suggests that divinity is not an exclusive attribute of a distant God, but a potential within those who embody divine principles of justice and wisdom. Jesus challenges the Pharisees' narrow view of blasphemy by demonstrating that his claim of a unique relationship with God does not contradict their own scriptures. Through this subtle yet profound argument, Jesus demonstrates that sacred texts speak of divinity not merely as something external, but as something woven into the very fabric of human existence. In John chapter 10 verse 34, when Jesus declares, "You are God's," he is not making an isolated, enigmatic assertion. On the contrary, his words are part of a profound biblical tapestry that threads through the Old and New Testaments. To grasp the magnitude of his assertion, we must consider 8 key cross-references that illuminate and deepen this teaching. These verses not only affirm Jesus' claims within Scripture, but also unveil an inspiring vision of humanity's divine potential, a vision often overlooked or hidden in plain sight. 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 16. Do you not know that you are God's temple, and that God's Spirit dwells in you? Consider how this elevates the human body and soul to sacred status. It is the dwelling place of the divine. This parallels Jesus' assertion in John chapter 10 verse 34, emphasizing that divinity resides within us. To be God's is not about wielding power, but about bearing the sacred responsibility of housing God's presence. This verse calls for reverence, self-awareness, and the pursuit of holiness. John chapter 17 verses 22 to 23. The glory that you have given me I have given to them, that they may be one even as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. In Jesus' prayer to the Father, he reveals the ultimate goal of his mission, unity between humanity and God. The sharing of divine glory is not exclusive to Christ, it extends to all believers. This verse crystallizes the mystical truth behind John chapter 10 verse 34. The realization of oneness with the divine is not a privilege for the select few but a destiny for all. Exodus chapter 7 verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you as God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet." How does God himself explicitly elevate Moses to divine status in his mission to free Israel? While Moses is not inherently divine, this verse demonstrates God's willingness to endow humanity with divine authority and attributes in the fulfillment of his will. It serves as an Old Testament precedent for Jesus' claims. highlighting the dynamic interplay between God's power and humanity's role as co-creators in His plan. Romans chapter 8 verses 14 to 17. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ. Consider that Paul presents one of the New Testament's most profound doctrines, the adoption of believers as sons and daughters of God. To be heirs of God means to inherit divine qualities and responsibilities, affirming the essence of Jesus' words in John chapter 10 verse 34. This passage holds the mystery of divine kinship, inviting believers to embrace their spiritual identity. Mysticism has long regarded the phrase, "You are God's," as an acknowledgement of humanity's inherent divinity. Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas, explore the idea of an inner divine spark. In Gnosticism, the path to enlightenment involves transcending worldly illusions to reclaim and realize this divine essence within. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus speaks of discovering the inner light and teaches that recognizing this light is essential for finding the kingdom of God, which is not an external place but a state of divine awareness. In Christian mysticism, particularly within the Eastern Orthodox tradition, the concept of theosis, deification, embodies the path to godlikeness. The mystic Saint Athanasius famously declared, God became man so that man might become God, emphasizing that humanity's ultimate goal is union with God. This does not imply that humans intrinsically become God, but rather that they participate in the divine nature, reflecting God's attributes. In Sufism, the heart is often described as the receptacle of divine light. The great Sufi poet Rumi speaks of polishing the heart to reveal this light, suggesting that divine qualities lie dormant within each person, awaiting their unveiling. The phrase, "You are God's," would resonate with Sufi teachings on the nearness of God and the potential for union with the Beloved, which transcends the individual self and reveals God's presence within. Before we delve into the forbidden teachings of Jesus, make sure you've hit the subscribe button and shared this video with someone who needs to hear it. At the heart of the phrase, "You are God's," lies an invitation to recognize the divinity that exists within each individual. From a psychological perspective, this recognition is an act of self-awareness, where individuals begin to understand that they are not merely passive beings subject to external forces, but active co-creators of their own lives. This phrase serves as a reminder that the deepest essence of every human being is sacred, divine, and inherently good. Carl Jung, one of the most influential figures in modern psychology, spoke of the self as the totality of the psyche, the integration of both conscious and unconscious elements. Jung believed that the path to psychological health and wholeness involves recognizing the self, a concept that bears a striking resemblance to the spiritual journey of realizing one's divine essence. In Jungian terms, the self is not merely the individual ego, but a divine eternal aspect of the psyche that can be awakened through self-reflection, introspection, and the integration of the unconscious mind. When we say "You are God's," we are essentially pointing to this divine archetype within the psyche. This aspect of the self always aligns with truth, wisdom, and compassion. A key aspect of personal growth is to bring this divine archetype into conscious awareness, integrating it into daily life. This process of self-actualization, as Maslow described it, can be seen as a personal manifestation of the divine potential within. One of the most profound psychological applications of the phrase, "You are God's," lies in the process of shadow integration, a concept Jung first developed. The shadow represents unconscious aspects of the personality that the ego has repressed because they are perceived as undesirable or unworthy. It holds all the traits, desires, and impulses we disown but which are essential for our holistic being. Within the context of "You are God's," the shadow holds the untapped divine potential within us. The divine nature expresses itself not only in light and love but also in strength, assertiveness, and the ability to manifest and create. By embracing the shadow, those parts of us that feel unworthy or repressed, we acknowledge the fullness of our humanity and the perfection of our divine potential. This process is deeply connected to personal healing and growth, as it allows us to move from fragmentation to integration. The phrase, "You are gods," serves as a reminder that divinity is not about perfection, but about the integration of all aspects of the self, light and shadow, known and unknown. Acknowledging and embracing the shadow is a necessary step in realizing the fullness of our inner divinity. One of the key psychological applications of the phrase, "You are gods," is the shift from the ego to the higher self. In many spiritual traditions, the ego is seen as an aspect of the self, primarily concerned with survival, status, and personal gain. While the ego is a necessary part of the human experience, it is also the part of us that can lead to suffering when it is overly identified with external validation, material success, or fear. The ego often distorts our sense of self, convincing us that we are separate from others, from nature, and from the divine. However, the realization of the phrase, "You are gods," invites a profound shift. The individual moves beyond egoic identification to a higher self-awareness, where they see themselves as part of a larger whole, connected to the divine source of all life. In psychological terms, transcending the ego involves self-transcendence, a state where the individual moves beyond personal desires and egocentricity to act from a place of universal love and wisdom. This transformative journey aligns with the process of spiritual awakening, where the individual becomes more attuned to their authentic self, the part that is intrinsically connected to the divine and to all creation. Now, let's explore 4 more cross-references that illuminate and deepen this teaching. Genesis chapter 1 verses 26 to 27. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female, he created them. Why is this foundational verse a cornerstone for understanding humanity's connection to divinity? Being made in the image and likeness of God, imago Dei, signifies that humans bear a resemblance to God, not only in physical form, but also in spiritual, intellectual, and moral capacity. In mysticism, this concept is often linked to humanity's potential for divine union and reflects a hidden spark of God embedded within every soul. Jesus' words in John chapter 10 verse 34 echo this primordial truth, reminding us that our divine essence is not foreign. It is intrinsic, woven into the very fabric of creation. Psalm chapter 82 verse 6. I said, "You are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High." This is the very verse Jesus directly quotes in John chapter 10 verse 34. In Psalm chapter 82, God addresses a group of beings referred to as gods, in Hebrew, Elohim, holding them accountable for their actions. Scholars and mystics have long debated whether these gods are heavenly beings, earthly judges, or a metaphor for humanity itself. Mystically, the verse suggests a duality, a call to live in divine righteousness, and a reminder of our divine origin. Jesus' reference reclaims this truth, inviting his audience and us to awaken to the divine heritage slumbering within. Psalm chapter 8 verses 4 to 5. What is mankind that you are mindful of them, or the Son of Man that you care for him? You made them a little lower than the angels, and crowned them with glory and honor. See how the psalmist here marvels at humanity's exalted status in creation. The phrase, "a little lower than the angels," in Hebrew, Elohim, has often been interpreted as a little lower than God. The crowning with glory and honor underscores the divine attributes bestowed upon humanity. This verse deeply resonates with Jesus' claims, emphasizing humanity's elevated nature and its proximity to the divine realm. 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 4, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire. This verse from Peter unveils the transformative power of faith, participation in the divine nature. Theosis, or deification, becomes a bridge between human fragility and divine perfection. Peter echoes Jesus' assertion that humanity's ultimate goal is not mere survival or morality, but spiritual transcendence, a return to the divine source. If these words resonate with you, know that you have only scratched the surface. If you are ready to explore these mysteries even deeper, subscribe to the channel, because this journey is just beginning. And let us know in the comments, do you feel the call of divinity within you?